Welcome to this set of videos about the social contract. The social contract is a concept developed by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and it is also the name of his book. Jean-Jacques Rousseau is a Swiss philosopher from the 18th century, also known as the Enlightenment century. So why is it important? Why is it interesting? Well, the social contract is a fundamental concept that sits at the core of every democracy. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding out there when it comes to democracy. And for instance, a lot of people assume that in a democracy, the state cannot coerce citizens to do anything. And on the other hand, you may ask, okay, well, if the state is indeed legitimate sometimes to coerce citizens to do things, where do you draw the line? Where does it stop? Well, you will understand all this and much more by understanding the social contract. The social contract will allow you to understand where legitimate democratic power sits, where it comes from, and where it stops. What are the responsibilities of citizens towards the state, and vice versa. So it's really about understanding the fundamentals of a democracy. Rousseau is probably one of the first to conceptualize the social contract. However, his concept came with one major flaw, and modern democracies have adapted Rousseau's concept in order to correct that major flaw. So, in this set of videos, we'll first talk about Rousseau's concept, and then we will talk about the adaptation by modern democracies of his concept. Before I start, I would like to share with you a few illustrations of the social contract. In this picture, you have individuals who have assembled together in order to form a new body, and that new assembled body, we will call it the social body. So what made it possible for these individuals to assemble together? How did they agree to assemble in order to form that new social body? Well, they agreed on it thanks to a social contract. And they signed that social contract with each other. Moreover, that social body, it has a will of its own. Like, how do we decide whether the social body will punch or will move the left arm up? Well, we determine that will thanks to the governance section laid out in the social contract. Finally, as you can see in this image, the social body is much stronger than each of its individuals taken separately. So the social body is way more able to protect the security of each of its members, as well as ensuring their individual rights. Same concept, but with a different picture. And this time with fishes. Again, you have small fishes that have assembled together to form a new social body. And that new social body is much more able to protect the security of each of its composing members. And how did all those small fishes agree to assemble? Well, thanks to the social contract. And now that they have assembled, how do they decide on the movements of that social body? Well, again, thanks to the form of governance that was laid out in the social contract. This picture is very famous, but it kind of has a left-wing connotation. However, I would not want you to think that the social contract is a left-wing concept. No, it's not. It's a democratic concept. So it spans both the democratic left as well as the democratic right. Finally, this is my last illustration of the social body. This picture comes from the show Family Guy, and obviously I don't mean any offense to people with disabilities. But I'm going to use that picture in the rest of the presentations because I want an illustration of the social body that is composed of humans. Why? Well, because I want to stress the fact that the social contract is a commitment that citizens, people, make with each other. About myself. I just want to stress the fact that I'm an amateur. So we are going to talk about concepts of political philosophy as well as fundamental concepts that underlie constitutional law. However, I'm not an expert in these subjects. Still, I'm an amateur, meaning that I like these subjects, and that therefore I have read quite extensively about those subjects, starting of course by reading the book. So before we actually talk about Rousseau's concept, I would like to make a short introduction. I would like to introduce the subject by first answering the following question. What is the difference between the social contract and the Constitution? Well, you can consider them as synonyms. But in order to make a distinction, I would say that the social contract equals the terms of the contract itself, i.e. the Constitution, And I would say that here it's a legal concept, plus the belief of citizens in the terms of that social contract. And one of the most important conditions in that constitution, in that contract, is that citizens must have mutual solidarity and empathy towards each other. In order to further introduce the subject, I would like just to open one question, just as an appetizer. What does it mean to be a citizen of a democracy? What does it mean to be French? What does it mean to be British? And so on. Well, my answer is that the social contract, i.e. the constitution, is what binds us together as citizens of the same democratic country. So this is what makes you Spanish, British, American, and so on. So again, what does it mean to be French? Well, it's to be bound by the French social contract, i.e. the French constitution. For instance, in the United Kingdom, they have several different cultures and different languages. You have Welsh, Scottish, English, and so on. But they are all bound by the same social contract. They are bound by the British constitution, and therefore they are all citizens of the same country. They are British citizens. So you actually may disagree with this. You may have instead an identity-based definition of citizenship. And therefore you may think that what defines the citizenship of a country is not the social contract, but instead it is language, culture, religion, race, and other criteria. So you may disagree with me, but that's totally fine. Let's keep that subject aside for now. This was just an appetizer. So once you will have understood the concept of social contract, by the end of this series of videos, we will come back to that question. And hopefully, by then, you will change your mind. You will instead think of citizenship not as an identity question, not as a question of race, religion, language, and so on, but as a social contract question. But again, we'll see that later. First things first, you first have to understand the concept of social contract. Alright, that's it for my introduction. In the next video, we will actually talk about Rousseau's concept. So I hope I got your interest, and I hope to see you in the next video.